Hey, this is the Daily Overpass. My name is Eric and I make apps. Now today I want to talk about how device testing is important, but man, it sucks. Alright, so I've spoken before about the importance for device testing, right? A lot of developers, including myself, would prefer just to use the simulator or the emulator. See, in Android they call it the emulator, in iPhone they call it the simulator, but let's call it the simulator, right? So we prefer to do everything in this simulator because it's much faster. You know, it's easier to code that way. The feedback loop is much faster. You make a change, you see it immediately. You know, you don't have to deploy it to the device all the time, but sometimes you have bugs that only show up when you actually put them onto a device. So today I have one of those kind of things, or I had one of these this morning where, you know, every morning I try to make a to-do list of what to do. And I had this one thing for a client project, which the project was done, but on the beta build it was crashing a lot on iOS 10. And it wasn't one of those kind of crashes where you can ignore it. Like, it seems to be happening, you know, one in every 100 times, or whatever. No, this was happening like 1 in every 5 times, right? So it was something was going on, right? So, you know, I set myself on my to-do list today. I set myself 1 hour to debug this issue and go ahead and fix it. That was like 6 hours ago, and I finally got to the bottom of it. It was one of those kind of issues where the app just crashed. There was nothing in the logs. There was nothing, you know, I tried to put in the error handlers. I tried to put in debugging, everything like that, but nothing. And I had no idea what it was. Right, so in the end I was going through and commenting out line after line after line, trying to figure out where this thing was happening. I'm putting debug statements in, so like if you're in a loop or whatever, you can see, okay, we got to that line, but it never made it to this line, so it's somewhere in this little bit here. What could it be, right? And anyway, what it had to do with most of the time with iOS apps, when it just crashes like that, it's memory related. So I'm trying to load too many image assets at the same time, or I'm trying to or it's launching like too many threads at the same time. So in the past, I've had this a lot in games where we tried to load images that were far too large. So they worked fine in an iPad, they worked fine on the simulator, but when we loaded them up in the on the actual device, it just sort of quit. Right, it was just too much memory. We've had this before when we had parallel processes, so we're downloading data from, you know, online services, and we had different, so we just sort of launch all these asynchronous events, and the more data they would have, all those events would get too much and it would just crash the app. So that's what we had in the past. Today it had something to do with the keyboard focus not being set before the text box being removed. It was really strange, really weird, and it was just one of those ones where it just soul destroying. The entire day is gone, right? Everything else on my to-do list I'm not going to do, and sometimes, you know, that's the case. But you need to have a physical device when you're testing this kind of stuff. I mean, it was so bad that if it was one of my own apps, I would have just given up on it. I would have just said, you know, I guess we're just not going to support iPhone anymore on this one. But no, it was for a client, so I had to you know, put my back into it. So having devices around is really important. And as I mentioned before, it's always good to, if you have somebody who's getting a new phone, you know, and they're looking to get rid of their own one, get it from them cheap, or just have them give it to you. It's always good to have these things lying around. Like I said, I've got this weekend I've got a new iPhone 8 so that I could do iOS 11 testing, because my iPhone 5, which was my go-to testing phone, that won't upgrade to iOS 11. So, you know, it does get expensive after a while, but, you know, it saves me, you know, more often than not. So anyway, I guess my point today is device testing is important, but device testing sucks. Loading everything onto a device, running it, crashes, loading it, changing something, loading it up again, running it, crashes, and then finally getting to the end of it. Ugh. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll be in a better mood tomorrow.